These are things I stopped doing once I became financially literate, and I promise you, I will never go back to doing them. The first thing is ignoring bank fees, and I did learn this the hard way, unfortunately. I used to pay like $20 a month for the bank that I had, and when I started to get into investing, I would pay, and I'm not kidding, $20 every single time I made a trade. And when you do the math, that is hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars that I wasted on fees. Now I use Wealthsimple. I love them so much, and if you want to try them out, there's a link in my bio. The next thing I stopped doing is treating investing like gambling. I think a lot of people fall into this trap, and I know I did. I used to buy stocks I didn't understand. I used to buy stocks and then watch them hour over hour to see how they were moving. The next thing I stopped doing is making emotional purchases, and I find when I'm stressed or bored, I tend to spend more money. I am very intentional about what I buy, and I also have a 48-hour rule. So if there's something I want to buy that's over $100 and it's not essential, I will literally wait 48 hours to buy it, and usually I just forget about it. And the last thing I stopped doing is winging my budgeting and my finances. I used to have no idea what I would spend in a month, and I think that's true for a lot of people because it was for me for so long. Now every single month I have my Google Sheet template. I put in every single expense that I had that month and I categorize it. I have so many more things that I stopped doing once I became financially literate, so if you want to learn more, make sure to drop a follow.
One of the key things to becoming dangerously educated is being financially literate. So if you want to become financially literate, here's how you can do just that. This is not financial advice, by the way. First thing is controlling your cash flow, because if you cannot control your cash flow, nothing else matters. You want to know how much money you're making versus how much money you're spending on certain things, whether this be fixed expenses or variable expenses. Something that I've seen a lot is having a 3 to 6 month emergency fund and a high yield savings account of your choice as well, in order to help with understanding your cash flow and whatnot in case there's ever an emergency. Although I have been told and recommended, rather than 3 to 6 months, since that does burn up quite quickly, to have around 6 to 12 months. Second thing is mastering your credit, because your credit is future leverage. It basically shows how responsible you are with borrowing. You want to make sure that your payments are on time, and you want to pay as much of the full amount as you possibly can. The more you pay everything off, the better, and also making sure that your credit utilization is under 30% is ideal for the available credit that you have. You don't necessarily want to go over 30%. And credit in general is incredibly important because it's going to be what helps with getting a house, getting a loan, getting an apartment, getting good mortgage rates, getting business funding, anything like that. Third is understanding how wealth actually grows. It's important to learn about investing and debt and all of that stuff if you want to grow your wealth. Knowing things about compound interest, retirement accounts, risk versus return, all of that is incredibly important to learn. So when you know things related to that, that can help you grow your money in the future and make your money work even when you're not. Fourth is learning about different assets versus liabilities. So that way you can understand what you want to put more of your money into versus money that you don't necessarily want to be putting into all the time. For example, an asset that you want to put your money into could be stocks, or it could be your education, or anything like that. Something that depreciates in value and is a liability could be a car, or it could be a luxury item that depreciates in value over time, or anything like that. When you have an understanding of what is considered an asset and will help you in the future in terms of money versus a liability, that will help you make better financial decisions as well. Last thing for now is to build a personal finance system where you have an income tracker, an investment tracker, you have a monthly money review, and you have a plan in terms of what you want to do for your wealth. Because if you don't have a plan, it's a lot harder for you to understand what you need to do in order to get to where you want to go in terms of your financial goals and becoming financially literate. So yeah, I hope that helps, and best of luck. You got it.
Your credit card is the most important number in your life, and nobody taught you about this in school. I didn't have any parental figures to tell me about this stuff when I was in my 20s, and I really wish someone had. So consider me your online mom to give you this advice, because I care about you and I care about our youth. Your credit score is a number between 300 and 850. It tells lenders like banks, landlords, car dealerships, mortgage companies, whether you're trustworthy with your money. The higher the number, the more the doors open for you. A good score gets you lower interest rates, better apartments, better loan terms. A bad score, or no score at all, closes those doors and makes everything cost you more. Here's what actually builds your credit score, and it's simpler than you think. Number 1, pay everything on time. That is the most important thing you need to remember. If you cannot do that, please do not get a credit. This is the biggest factor, bar none. Set up auto pay for the minimum if you have to. A single missed payment can drop your score significantly. and it stays on your report for 7 years. Try to keep your credit balance lower. Keep it within 30% of your limit. If your limit is 1,000, try to keep it around 300 max. This is called the utilization rate, and it does matter, I think, more than people realize. Basically, within 6 to 12 months, if you're responsible with it and you'll pay it off on time, you'll have a score. And your future self, the one either trying to buy a home, lease a car, start a business, is going to be so grateful that you did this now. Okay, that's all. Love you.
A lot of people who make six figures still end up living paycheck to paycheck. And I want to talk about exactly why that happens. Lifestyle inflation. When the income goes up, girl, the expenses go up too. And you need to avoid doing that if you actually want to save and start using this income gain as a foundation to build wealth for yourself. They want nicer cars, luxury items, eating out, wanting to go on expensive trips. And that's great. That cannot be your lifestyle all the time if you're someone who's wanting to focus on saving money and, again, building wealth for yourself. So technically, yes, their income has gone up, but essentially their savings is staying exactly the same. The second thing is having a plan for your money. When you experience any kind of increase in your monthly income, you need to have a plan on how you're going to allocate every single dollar. If you don't have a plan for your money, the habits that you've established when you're making $40,000 will follow you when you're now making $100,000. It's going to be the same habits unless you develop a new plan on how you're going to save and preserve your money. And the last thing I think is trying to look wealthy, but not actually building wealth. It's nice to want nice things for yourself, and you should, but that doesn't mean you have to spend thousands of dollars on your appearance trying to keep up with everyone else. You need to be investing in your appearance, but also at the same time laying the foundation for you to be someone who's going to be very financially successful. So the next time you get a raise, remember that making more money is an opportunity, but at the same time, what you choose to do with the opportunity is what really determines the success of your financial foundation.
If I were going to build my financial literacy from scratch and get really freaking good with money, this is exactly what I'd do, and I'd do it in this order. I personally think of personal finance and financial literacy and getting good with money as like a pyramid, and you really need the foundations first. I know when you hear about investing, it sounds so enticing, you want to jump into it, you want to think about making money, but you really need to get the foundations solid first, because if you don't know what to do with £1,000, then how are you ever going to be able to manage £10,000 or even more? That being said, I think budgeting is literally the foundational block, the building block of all financial literacy. You need to be able to work with what you've got, you need to be able to set budgets, you need to be able to stick to them and make your money go a long way. Because without budgeting, you wouldn't be able to save. And I would say that is the second thing, the second building block in your financial literacy journey. There are lots of different saving strategies out there. There's the 50-30-20 rule. I personally used to split my paycheck right in half, and that made it super black and white and easy for me. Whatever works best for you. But with that in mind, I would say the next building block is building an emergency fund. This is traditionally 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. But if you're a student like me, even £500 as an emergency fund, which you don't touch unless you're in an emergency. It could be something like your bicycle breaking, or it could be something bigger if you're an adult paying bills, like you lose your job and you need to be able to sustain yourself for a few months. And since that is going to be a pool of money that you don't touch unless you need it, it's a really good idea to learn about the different sort of savings accounts that are out there, and especially one which is called a high yield savings account. The only difference here is that this sort of savings account gives you better interest, and to be honest with you, those aren't usually from traditional sort of high street banks like NatWest, like Lloyds. It's usually platforms like Monzo or digital banks like Chase, or even things like cash ISAs, which you can get on like Trading 212, which give you the better interest rates. So doing a bit of research, looking at websites like Martin Lewis's Money Saver Expert is a really good way to build your knowledge on what kind of savings accounts are out there, and it's also super normal to switch that around. I personally always check that I'm getting the best deal, and probably every 6 months I switch savings accounts to make the most of maybe a newbie deal or something where I get around 4% plus back on my money. I personally think once you've got all that down, that's when you can start thinking about investing. When it comes to investing, you want to learn about, first of all, the types of things you can invest in. You could be picking individual stocks, but that is a lot more risky than investing in things like ETFs and index funds, which are passive, low cost, and diversified. Also, just knowing those terms, like the term diversification, really good starting point for understanding investing. Looking into things like compound growth and stuff like that, and looking at all the different strategies there are, long-term versus short-term, trading versus long-term
investing. These are sort of things you want to start understanding how to both manage your risk, but also hopefully maximize your returns. There is no right way to invest, but definitely the more knowledge you have about the basics, about the definitions, and about the different strategies that are out there, you will be able to make your own decision, your own informed decision based on, of course, research and expectations. So that is exactly how I deal with building my financial literacy if I was literally starting from square one. If this sort of stuff interests you and you like money mindset, building wealth, side hustling, and even just like happy girl habits, then follow along for more of that as I take you guys with me on my wealth building journey as a 22-year-old.
I'm only 24 years old and I'm on track to have $100,000 in the next few months. So welcome back to It Makes Sense, my monthly series where I am tracking my income and expenses as a girly with multiple streams of income. Before I get some comments about this, no, I've never received a handout. I just work very hard and a lot. First, let's get into my income. I honestly am a jack of all trades. I have so many different streams of income, so let's go over them. I was able to pay myself $500 for my coffee cart business, $800 for client relations for a real estate agent in my area, brought in $2,300 from my education job that I work 21 hours a week, $1,090 from my part-time marketing job, $140 from Amazon affiliate and shop my commission, $4,700 from creating content, bringing my grand total of income for the month to $9,530. Now let's get into my spending, which is not so great. Every month, me and my husband both put $2,000 each into a joint account that covers our mortgage, utilities, and our grocery bill. I spent $180 dining and drinking coffee out. That is my weakness. Spent $99 on gas and then $1,075 on travel, and that covered my flight and my hotel for a music festival. Spent $165 on fitness, and then I spent $145 on subscriptions like Canva, Google Drive, all the things necessary, bringing my grand total for spending $3,664, which is pretty high, and there's no reason that I should be spending that. I was able to put $600 into my Capital One high yield savings account, and then I was able to put $4,700 into my Roth IRA and invest into ETFs in my portfolio. I work very hard and I'm really excited, and I've honestly become addicted to saving money. Like, I will say no to going and doing things just so that I can save. Goal honestly is to just move further into town. If you know me, you know that I live really on the outskirts of Jacksonville. So I'm really trying really hard to save so that I can move further into town because the housing market in Jacksonville is just insane. Honestly, think one of my best qualities is being financially literate because I feel like it's really hard and no one ever talks about it, but there's lots of ways that you can bring in extra income and then also what you do with your income to compound and make you more income. A high yield savings account is literally the best thing ever. And then if you have the extra funds, investing. I've seen so much growth in my portfolio, and I only started investing last year because I kept telling myself it was hard, but it's not hard. Thank you for watching. It makes sense. I'll be back next month to break down my income and earnings because I'm losing one of my income streams. So we'll see how that changes my income and my spending.
Financial literacy that my parents taught me at a young age that I will be teaching my children. Number one, we do not live outside of our means. We only purchase what we can afford, and we're not trying to live like the Joneses because half the time those people are in debt up to their eyeballs. Number two, we save money. We have enough money to live 6 months to a year if something were to happen, because life does and will happen. Now, that might seem hard to be saving money in this economy, but if you put aside 10% of your paycheck, I promise you, you will not miss it. But let's piggyback on that. Having multiple streams of income. I myself have multiple streams of income to ensure that I can save money and that I have fun money. My dad always had multiple streams of income as well. And we grew up, until I was about a preteen, we grew up lower middle class. So we didn't have a ton of money. Once my dad became successful, he made sure to save even more money just in case something were to happen, because success can fail overnight. So something my parents had me do from a really young age, any money I received for birthdays, Christmas, whatever, I had to save half of that money. And that was so helpful because I never missed it. And then I had it for when I needed a car for the future. I wanted to go to Europe for 2 weeks in college. They also required me to have a job, and my brothers. So we all were required to have a job if we wanted to have gas money, buy extra clothes other than like school clothes and things like that. Anything extra, my parents were not just funneling money out, even though they could have.
This is the order I prioritize my money in as someone who went from having no system to actually feeling in control of my finances. Hi, I'm Estefania, and this is part 10 and the finale of my 10-part series, Let's Talk Money Basics. I call this my money priority ladder. This is how I think about any money I have left over after my bills and my expenses are covered each month. It's not a strict checklist where I finish one thing before I touch the next. I can work on more than one thing at once. I just put more weight on what's more urgent right now. Step 1, build a starter emergency fund of $1,000 to $2,000. If you watched part 4 of the series, you already know why this one matters so much. If I was starting from scratch, this is the one I'd go all in on first. If I needed to move faster, things like picking up extra hours at work, a side gig, or selling things I no longer use are all ways I'd think about jumpstarting it. Step 2, high interest debt. Credit cards, high interest personal loans, anything above 8%. For me, this takes priority because it's costing me more than most investments can earn me. And on the same step, if my employer matched my 401k contributions, I'd work on that at the same time. That matches free money, and it starts building that investment habit early. Step 3, build out my full emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of expenses. I'd keep this moving in the background even while I'm paying off debt because a real emergency could put me right back in it, but I'd put more toward the debt than the emergency fund for now. Step 4, more intentional investing. For me, that looks like maxing out a Roth IRA if I'm eligible and continuing to grow my investment accounts. This is where my money can start really working for me. Step 5, everything else. Lower interest debt, bigger savings goals, alternative investments, whatever's next. If you're wondering how I actually split my money across these steps, I broke it down in the caption with a real example. Go check it out, and if you want me to go deeper into it, drop it in the comments and I'll make a separate video. The goal isn't to be perfect. What works for me might not work for everyone. The point is to have an order so I'm not just guessing. That's a wrap on the Money Basics series. If you've been watching from part 1, you now have more of a foundation than most people ever get. Save this one, come back to it, and share it with someone who needs it.
This is the second money lesson that I learned from my family, and this one comes from my lovely mother. So with this one, it is simply that it's okay to say no. And this, I think we've all been there where we ask for McDonald's, Burger King, whatever. Oh, hey buddy. So as I was saying, I think we've all been there where we ask our parent to get us McDonald's and they say no, or they say, do you have McDonald's money? And my mom was a professional at saying no. And one thing that I learned throughout life, with whether it was middle school, after I started getting an allowance, or high school or whatever, is I also began to become very good at saying no as well to things that weren't necessarily in my budget. One of my mom's favorite things was to say, that's not in my budget, or I didn't budget for that. And it wasn't necessarily that she couldn't afford it. It was simply just that she didn't want to buy it because it didn't make sense. We had food at home, or maybe she was saving to do something else. And I quickly learned that, yeah, that's okay. It's okay to say no. I think that it can be difficult due to fear of disappointing other individuals when we get invited out, or if there's a trip and you want to go on the trip naturally, and so you don't want to say no. But I do think that if you have strict goals and you understand that in order to accomplish those goals, you have to do certain things, whether it's saving $500 a month, or you have to set aside a certain amount to investments, or pay off a certain amount of your credit card every single month, knowing that those are your goals and that you have to do those things to accomplish your goals helps you say no, because you know that every step you take away on another path is taking you further and further away from those goals. And so being able to say no isn't a bad thing. I think that if you say no all the time, now maybe that's not healthy, but being able to say no when you know that it's not going to suit you in the long term, I think is a strength that we would all be better served to have. I think that my friends can speak to this. I think that my family can speak to this, that I can be boring at times because I can be a hermit in the house, just saying no to everything, which I've started to do less of. But it all stems from wanting to make sure that I'm okay in the future. And so being able to say no has helped me with that. But that's the second lesson that I learned from my family. I think all of these are kind of like habitual lessons, or lessons around habits that ultimately helped me with money. But please, once again, in the comments, let me know some lessons that you learned from your family.
If I had to invest my first $100 into the stock market again, this is exactly what I do. Even if you don't know anything about the stock market. First, you need to get a brokerage account, and that's basically an app that lets you buy investments. Some beginner-friendly ones is Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Vanguard. You can even use Robinhood if you don't want like a brick and mortar. I use Robinhood, and I also use Fidelity and Vanguard. Step 2 is to buy ETFs. Do not get single stocks. Please. Instead of investing in single stocks like Tesla and Apple, I'm gonna go look for ETFs, which is basically like a big basket of all like the top companies, which is safer and it's less risky. The easiest way that I can explain is you want a big dog ETF, the everybody ETF, and then a world ETF. A good big dog ETF would be VU, which is the S&P 500 ETF. That's basically the top 500 companies that are placed into one basket for you. So if the economy grows, you grow. Your everybody stock would be VTI. VTI is your total stock market ETF. They basically hold thousands of different US stock companies, so that instantly diversifies you, so you're not putting all your stocks into one place. Your rolled ETF would be VXUS, which is international ETFs. That gives you stocks outside of the US for more of a global balance. Once you invest into those three, I would set your brokerage account into an auto invest. So like have it deduct $20 or $50 out of your paycheck or whatever you can afford. And then keep investing into those three ETFs I told you about, or even learn more about different ETFs if you want. It's not just about time in the market, it's about how much time you're in the market. Don't be one of those people that hides money under the bed.